Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I got that from that movie. What is it? Sweeney Todd. When he's like singing, the little boys getting people to come to the barbershop so they can get killed. Welcome back to the Wrestling Diaries. I'm your host, Mitchell Roulaine. This is the podcast show for the average Joe. Check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and a plethora of other platforms that host our audio podcast. Leave us a review. It's really good. It helps us show up more on the algorithm so people can listen to our content. And if you want to see the video, go to YouTube, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell right there for more content we release once a week. Struggle is manhood or womanhood or some kind of humanhood. And we find out from people in everyday society about the things that make them who they are, their being, and what they wrestle with. Today, I have a little pal of mine, all the way from good old Colorado.
That's right.
Taylor English. What's up, Taylor English?
I appreciate the sound effect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Yeah.
We don't have a live studio audience, so I try to add on my little flair. Oh, did I just spoiler alert? Spoiler alert. Maybe we do. I'm lying.
Yeah.
It's misdirection.
One
ladies and gentlemen.
audience.
It's misdirection. So Taylor, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Your last name English, is that British?
No,
No. It's not
think
it's not
so.
English. It's not an English last name.
I don't know. I know that I'm like German and
Oh yeah?
what else? Scottish. And I'm
German,
also like
Scottish.
part Cherokees, like Indian.
Okay.
Really interesting, but
The
I
Scottish
don't know where my last name originated. I don't
the
know.
Scottish though, I guess I could tell because don't they have a lot of Scottish people have like red hair? You
Yeah.
have red hair, obviously. I guess. I don't is that a thing? Yeah. That's a thing, right, Matt? Scottish people have red hair. But Jason, our friend Jason, is a lot Irish. So
yeah, and Irish, yeah.
Irish. Okay, so my friend Jason, I'm gonna tell you the story real quick. He, his hair. He's Scottish and a lot of Irish, and then something else, whatever white boy mix recipe from Europe. But so his hair grows out. The hair on his head grows out just straight blonde, like typical, just not like super bright yellow or pale blonde, but just like a general, just yellowish looking blonde, right? And then his beard grows out 100% red.
Yeah.
So when he has a beard and he has like, he shaves his head a lot, but when he grows his hair out, he has like blonde hair and a red beard. And it's literally two different colors. It's not, his beard's not like a strawberry blonde and his hair appears in like kind of auburnish. So it fades in. It's literally yellow and red. And so people would always be like, oh man, yeah, that's cool, man. You dyed your hair blonde, like offset the color of your beard. Or, oh, cool, you dyed your beard, offset the color of your hair. And he's like, oh, no, this is just, I had somebody say that to me once. They're like, oh, man, your friend, he's kind of crazy, queer, man. He like dyed his hair and his beard two different colors. I was like, no, that's just how it grows out. And they're like, what? No way. There's no way. Because they're two different colors. So, anyways.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get the red hair from my grandma, but
Your
like
gra-
skips a generation in my family.
So your mom or dad don't have red hair then?
Mm-mm.
How red is your grandmother's hair? The same red as yours or more?
Yeah, she had like the auburn like red hair like I do. And then I have a cousin who has like dark red auburn hair like me. That like
Yeah.
comes on my dad's side, but
So is it true what they say about redheads? Are you guys more feisty and fiery?
absolutely. I'll just own that like straight up, and I think that the people like close in my life could attest to that for sure. But there's a
Yeah.
feistiness, yeah.
Do you would you say you have a temper? You know? Like you get pretty mad and you're like, oh my gosh, you just go She-Hulk.
Yeah. I would say that like it depends on like what the trigger is, but yeah, I feel like those emotions are definitely real.
Your poor boyfriend.
Yeah, man.
I'm just kidding.
Poor boyfriend.
No, I'm joking. So, Taylor, you are originally from what part of Colorado?
Like where I was born.
Yeah, where you're born and then grew up
Yeah.
and whatnot.
I was born in Black Hawk, which is in the mountains. Or
Oh,
like
cool.
that was like where I first lived. And then I moved down to Littleton because I actually had like a lot of birth defects when I was born, and I had a hole in my lungs. And so
Oh no.
yeah, so I had to move down and we moved to like a lower elevation, and then the house that my parents live in now in Littleton is the house that I like grew up in and have lived in for the last like 21 years. So
Have you ever been hiking through the Rockies? Is that like a thing you've ever done?
okay, yeah. Well, yes, I don't enjoy hiking in Colorado, honestly. Which
Why
is
not?
like,
You're just not a
it's-
hiking person, not your thing?
No, I like hiking. I like hiking now that I've moved to Alabama.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
People in Colorado take hiking very seriously. Like it's
Okay.
like an intense sport, and like
Oh,
you have to have like all the equipment and like the backpacking and the right shoes and like all of the granola and everything like that. But I feel like here in like Alabama, you can just like stroll and just like go on and like a little adventure and stuff like that. But in
Yeah.
Colorado, it's like intense. Like you have to bring enough water and like have like the right equipment because like it's just a different like environment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, I've lived in Colorado my whole life up until this point, and I've never hiked a 14 or anything like that. Like I've gone hiking, but
Mhm.
there's several 14ers in Colorado, and I never did any of them.
How much snow do you all guys get? Like, what's the average on that?
I
Just- I'm
don't.
curious.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's a lot, and it's really weird because it starts snowing maybe in December, but then it'll snow through like our snowiest months are like in April and May, like when it's like almost springtime.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
interesting.
Yeah,
It's like right at the foot of spring and summer.
Yeah.
And you just get all the snow. That's interesting.
yeah, I miss the snow a little bit.
What's the worst snow that you guys ever go through a blizzard or anything?
Yeah, and there's been times where like it snowed so much that like you've had to like the snowplows and stuff like that can't even like come and like
Jeez.
plow the streets and stuff like that, and you're like barricaded inside.
Foots and foots of snow.
Yeah.
For something like I've always liked, obviously somebody that lives in Colorado like you or anywhere else, people in Wisconsin, Canada, whatever,
Yeah.
they get snow all the time, so it's not like they're like, oh, it's just another day, blah blah blah. But like I've always like here in Alabama, we're obsessed with snow. In case you hadn't noticed, people freak out. It's just one snowflake, and they're like, "Oh my god, we gotta shut down schools and interstates. Everybody's getting bread and
Yeah.
water. Like it's like the apocalypse."
Yeah.
It's just so fun. I guess just because we don't get it, and it's just like we're like, "Oh, look at white stuff up there." But I I guess fantasy of mine is like to get like snowed in.
Mhm.
Like, for a couple days, nothing too crazy where people are losing their power and starving to death or whatever. But like for a few days, you snowed in because it snowed so much. You're stuck at home and you got a roaring fireplace and you're stocked up with food and some hot chocolate and you just
Yeah.
got your fuzzy socks on. You're watching, I don't know, It's a Wonderful Life or something, a Christmas Story,
Yeah.
just chilling, sipping hot cocoa, the fireplace, there's snow. And then you go outside and play with the snow later, and then come back in after a full day, snowball fights and snowmen and snow forts. And you come in, get all the slushiness off, get in your warm PJs, fireplace going, roaring, and boom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'd be sad.
have some nice stew. I've thought about this very, very intensely.
Yeah.
So
You make like snow days sound so much better. I was so excited like when the winter months came because we would have snow days and like school would be canceled. And like you would get really excited about like if school got canceled because it had snowed so much.
Well, I'm assuming it would have to snow a certain amount.
Yeah,
Because
it has
obviously
to.
y'all had to go to school when
Yeah,
it was snowing, probably many times, I imagine.
Yeah. So it has to be like
Like you can't
Super intense.
drive. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's like a foot and a half of snow on the
Yeah.
ground. Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when I first moved here and I think it was like middle of February and you guys had that like really soft sprinkle of snow
Mhm.
and it was more like
Oh,
ice.
so you did get to see these
I did.
Alabamians freak
and
out.
everyone freaked
Okay.
out. I was like, whoa, this is
What are these people
so
doing?
different.
These people are crazy. I've lived here all my life, and I know this about
Yeah.
us.
It was
What it
really
is, man.
interesting.
People lose their minds when
Yeah.
it's snowing. Like literally, I was somewhere once, and somebody was like, they were like, "Hey, did you hear? You better get back. Did you hear what's happening?" And I'm like, "Well, what's happening? Are we being under attack? And like, what's happening? Is there a tornado outside?" It's like, "No, it's snowing."
Yeah.
I was like, "It is? I don't see anything." It was like, "Yeah, you see that flake right there?
Yeah.
There's another one." You better get home, man. It's probably going to get bad. They're saying it's going to get bad. And then
Yeah.
it doesn't do it like might little flurry, it melts. And then, That's it.
Yeah.
We're like, you better get home.
I know.
It's dangerous.
Well, I've been on the opposite where like y'all have like flash flood, like rain, like
yeah.
super intense rain. And
Through all these
I
valleys here.
am still learning how to drive in that. Like that's new. And y'all are just like cruising on the highway. And I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah. I haven't been
So,
to Colorado, but from what I've heard and research, and then I had another friend who lived there for like half a year. The humidity here in the air is, and you guys don't have like the humidity there, so it's like it's different. And yeah, our colds are more ugh, and our heat more ugh, just because of the humidity in the air.
yeah.
And so I was like, man, I wish I could just see what it's like in Colorado, just to be away from all this humidity,
Yeah.
so like I can breathe
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. You'll have to come and visit. Like I'll bring.
I want to visit because now I
family
found
in.
out that there's like an In-N-Out there.
That's right. I think there's 2.
2
In-N-Outs, yeah.
In-N-Outs. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Gotta get on this.
Yeah.
We go
It was a
like
good time.
hike in the Rockies, playing in snow, and then eat In-N-Out.
Yep.
That's my
Agenda?
my agenda for going to Colorado is those 3 things.
Yeah, that's important.
So, tell us why'd you move from Littleton, Colorado, all the way here to Birmingham, Alabama?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
What's that all about? So I moved here, just with, I guess the door opened, for the opportunity to happen. So I started working for a family back in Colorado, and I started nannying for them. And I started with them in August, and then by December, they had decided that they were gonna like uproot their lives in Colorado, and the mom was gonna accept a job opportunity that she had got presented with, and they were gonna move here to Birmingham. And actually, I found out that the grandma of the mom was the one who kind of like advocated for me, which is really cool. But she had just like talked with Dana and Alex, the parents, of just like, hey, like, you should talk with Dana about what it would be like if Taylor potentially like helped you guys transition and stuff like that. And so it was kind of the grandma that had put this idea in their heads. And then there was a day when I went to work and Dana was like, no pressure, but if you want to come and move to Birmingham just for a short period of time, just from February to May, we'd love to have you and you can stay with us. And yeah, so it just was kind of through job, and super thankful that I did. But
yeah, what are the people that you work for? What do they do for a living?
So Dana got a job. She's like, and I might mess up their titles a little bit, but she's like an executive manager for the restaurant chain Jack's.
Okay. I just had that for dinner last night.
Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, she's really good at like corporately managing restaurants and stuff like that.
Okay.
And she worked for a restaurant chain before she got offered this job.
Yeah.
But we don't have Jack's in Colorado.
Yeah, because you have In-N-Out.
Yeah, because we have In-N-Out, so we don't need Jack's.
Dadgummit.
And then Alex actually works from home, and he is like a marketing consultant, and he like
Okay.
helps like sell and like brand things, I guess. So that's about my knowledge of what they do.
Yeah, and so like you work as their like official nanny, taking care of their kids, helping with that. It's because they're both really busy. How long have you been doing that time frame, like for working for them, taking care of their kids?
Yeah, I started with them last August, so full circle, like it's been a year now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now you originally were saying, she was saying it was just a short period of time because it was from February to May. Now it's September now here.
Here I am.
So what's that all about? Are they still here?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're still here.
So why did she say that it was just going to be to May? Did the job extend or?
Yeah. So what had happened was so like they are really good about like being intentional with spending their summers like with family and stuff like that. And so Dana's parents, their plan was to like come for the summer and be together, and then Anna was going to kindergarten and Maddie was going to go into preschool. And so there wasn't really like a future plan past May for me, which I kind of knew. And I was like, okay, like,
Okay.
I could stay and then go back to Colorado at the end of May.
Yeah.
But I had had multiple conversations with them over the course of those couple of months and had just told them that I'd like fallen in love with Birmingham and the community, and all these people and my life here. And I was like, yeah, like I think I'm gonna stay and like really start to like figure this out. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, if you're gonna stay in Birmingham, like, do you want to like stay with us? And I was like, okay. And so Anna still went to kindergarten, which is awesome. It's
Yeah.
really been good for her. But I've been with Maddie now. She's the little one.
How old is she?
She's 2.
Okay.
She's super sweet. And that's been really good. And so yeah, they just kind of made it work, and like we've kind of just both been like there for each other and processing like as all of this transitioning has happened. So it wasn't necessarily like the plan, but it's worked out really well.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's so adventurous.
Yeah.
It's like, and I love your just tenacity to just get up. I mean, well, I know you're already attached to this job that you were doing, but
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like for a lot of people, especially people that grew up where they were, it's not the easiest thing for somebody to just pick up and leave and go to a completely different place, you know, where you're around people that are different in a different area and you don't know anybody essentially. And so I can imagine that being like pretty tough for people to just do it. And so, but people that I encounter that do that, I'm very envious of them, and I don't know, I'm just kind of like, oh, that's amazing that you
Yeah.
could just do that, like, because it's, you know, I don't want to say it's taking a risk in life, but you just like, you know, I'm just gonna go. I don't have to stay here. I can
Yeah.
move. I can do what I want to do. You know?
Yeah. I had I'd been like processing it because they gave me like a time frame of a couple weeks to when I had to like finalize whether I was going to move with them. And 2 of my friends, so like my cousin Alex, she moved to Indiana from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
She had spent her whole life in Colorado and like uprooted. And I talked with my friend Allie, who had lived in Colorado and then uprooted and moved with her husband Ben to Arizona. And when I talked with them, they were like, yeah, we felt the nerves, but like it was the best decision they ever made, and it was like really good for them. They grew individually, and it was really cool to like share that experience with them and to be encouraged by that, because they were like, no, like you can really benefit from this experience. But then like on the flip side of that, it was different to talk to people that like my family, for instance, or friends that have always stayed in Colorado, which there's nothing wrong with that, but like a lot of their response to me like taking this leap was like, okay, like you don't know anyone, like you're not
Yeah.
gonna have any friends, like you're gonna be really lonely, like what if like you really don't like it and then you're stuck there? Like they had all these fears.
Yeah.
But the people that had already done it like had so much like encouragement.
It's funny that
You
the
know?
people that have those fears, they're not the one leaving.
Yeah, have
like
ever
you're the
done
one
that.
leaving,
Yeah.
but they're just, you know, it's so easy to just sit back outside and look
Yeah.
through a window and be like, oh, this is, you don't know, I'm doing this. But how can you say it? You're not doing it.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
unless somebody told you that who's already done it and they're like, yeah, hey, just let you know, I did what you did, Taylor. And for me, I mean, maybe it might be different for you, but I don't know. It was bad. I didn't know anybody, blah, 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 lonely.
Yeah.
They're telling this to you. I guess it was just, you know, because it's your family and they're like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Don't do something crazy like that. Don't just throw
Don't go that
caution in
far
the
away.
wind and
Yeah.
just adventure and see where life's
Yeah.
going to take you. Don't do that. That's crazy. Be safe. Stay
Yeah.
here, you know.
Well, yeah,
Like
and
that's a lot of people's mentality.
yeah. And there was like a safety net to it. They were like, okay, like in 4 months, like in May, you can just come home, you know?
Yeah.
But then that didn't even end up like being the case. So having those conversations of like, actually, I'm gonna stay here permanently, they were like, yeah,
Yeah.
that face. They were like, are you serious right now?
They're kind of upset with you. Your parents upset with you for doing that.
I don't know if upset's the right word, but I think
What is the right word? Infuriated. Blowing a gasket.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm an only child, and
Oh, that's even worse.
yeah,
They don't even have like a son or another
No,
daughter they can
yeah.
kind of leech on to. Like you're the
they,
Oh
And I'm a
man.
daughter, so like
Jeez
they're
Louise.
protective and yeah, I think they were honestly like really surprised, but then like for them, they were so involved. They've always been really involved in my life.
Yeah.
Like my mom, even when I was not living at home, like my mom worked at the college that I went to, and so I always had like so much involvement. Like they knew my friends, they knew my life, and for me to like be here in Birmingham to where like they've never been here, they don't know the people, they don't know the church, like
Yeah.
they were like, "Wait, what? Like why are you doing like everything you have is back here in Colorado. Like what can you have there that you don't have here?"
Right.
Is maybe how they look at it and process it, but I think it took a while for them to be supportive and like on board with the decision.
Yeah. Have they came to visit you since you've been here? Because I know you went to visit
Yeah.
them, obviously, because we're talking
Yeah.
about you going to
Yeah.
hang out without me. But
yeah, they both came out to visit.
what's their assessment?
Yeah.
Good old Alabama.
Of good old Alabama.
Roll Tide, roll. Or War Eagle, whatever your
Yeah.
taste. You know.
So my dad ended up like falling in love with it. He really
Okay.
liked Alabama and Birmingham, and we did like a lot of like brewery hops, and we went and like
Oh, nice.
we went to that it's a museum, and it has all these different motorcycles and cars.
Okay.
I can't remember, it was that super cool though. And like
Yeah.
my dad's really into that stuff, and we like connect in that way. Like he taught me like a lot about cars, and we went dirt biking and stuff. So he really enjoyed Alabama, and that was really good. And then that was actually before I had finalized like that I was permanently staying in Alabama.
Okay. Yeah.
And then my mom came out to visit, and she had come out after the fact, like I had finalized that I was going to stay. And so she was like processing, and I think she was kind of mourning like the fact that like she'd be visiting and I wouldn't be coming home with her.
Yeah.
And so her experience here in Alabama, I think, was a lot different than what my dad was, like his experience, you know?
Right.
So I think there was a little bit like, I don't know, narrow mindedness or like just a little bit of fog with my mom's experience of what it was like here. But
Because she's also attaching it to her baby girls staying
Yeah.
in this place that's not their, not home,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was really cool. Like she really enjoyed everyone that she met like at church and stuff.
Mhm.
And I think she could appreciate it, but I don't know if she really like saw it for what it was to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, different experiences.
So how are their feelings now? Like, have they loosened up more about you living here? Are they still kind of like, they still prodding you? Oh, Mitchell, what?
It's like the opposite now. They're like, okay, so if you're gonna permanently be in Alabama, we're gonna look for houses in Tennessee, or
Oh.
like they're gonna come and like,
Wow.
yeah, they just
Yeah, you're their only kid, man. I
mean-
mean, so you got to do that.
Yeah.
But then that stinks because if they move to Tennessee or something, then I can't ever hitch a ride when you're like, oh,
you can still
I'm
hitch a
going to
ride.
Colorado to visit my parents and stuff. And I'm like, in and out it is.
Jill's very adamant
Yeah,
about
I'm
that.
super
Yes.
into, I'm a big foodie, in case people didn't know. I am like a hobbit, just not tiny with big hairy feet. Okay.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think there's still like a factor of like really missing me and thinking that the proximity of closeness is what is like lacking in our ability to like be close and like connect.
Yeah.
Versus like that's not either way, however close, even if I lived with them, like I don't
Yeah.
think that would change.
I get it in the sense of like, you're their only child
Yeah.
and you're their baby girl and stuff like that, but you're a grown woman now, right? And
Yeah.
so like that happens. It's the baby bird flies the coop.
Yeah.
And they go and start their own nest and do their own thing.
Yeah.
And I guess it's hard for a lot of parents to, I don't know, kind of wrap their head around stuff like that. And I get it, being a parent is like, it's a tough thing, and you want to keep your kids, I guess, close to you. And then I guess you should feel blessed though too, because there's parents out there also like, oh, I don't care about this kid. Just do whatever. Just go. I don't even want you, you know. So
Yeah.
at least you know.
Yeah,
they,
no, I'm
they,
thankful.
They're,
They
they're
do.
like, they love you.
Yeah, they do love me. They really care. It's just yeah, it's just a different experience.
So what is your next goals in life, your aspirations? Obviously, I can't imagine you would be nannying for these people forever. Their kids are going to grow up eventually and be like,
Raise
hey, I
our
don't really
kids.
need you to babysit. I'm like I have my learner's permit, like, or whatever. So what do you
Oh my
do you have
gosh.
a plan for like a future of something you want to do? Career wise, professional wise, artistic wise?
Yeah.
Like what does that look like?
Yeah. I take that heavy sigh because I feel like there's a lot of unknown and I feel like there's a lot of weight to that question.
Okay.
I definitely was one to like always have a plan throughout my life. And so I guess like I'll preface with saying that I thought my life was going to look really different like leading up to this point where I am now.
Mhm.
And so for me to like have expectations or plan of what I want my future to look like is something I guess I wrestle with because
Oh, okay.
um,
Well, hold on, Taylor.
yeah,
We haven't
okay.
got to
I'm
that part
sorry.
yet.
We
Okay.
haven't. I'm not
I
allowed to
gotta
say
say
that
the
word
thing.
yet. Okay.
Let's stay on script
No,
here.
actually, I don't wrestle with that at all. Actually, I have everything
Can I get my
figured out.
producer over here? She's staying off script. Like she didn't listen to this.
So sorry, Mitchell.
We all like we practiced the script and all this stuff. We rehearsed. I don't know. What are we, Matt? What are we gonna do? No, I'm kidding. I mean, hey, you know, but you're also still you are an adult, but you're also still
Yeah.
very, very young,
Yeah.
and so you've got a lot of time to kind of iron that detail out.
Yeah.
And so you know,
I do feel like I have a lot of passions and a lot of things that like my heart breaks for and things that I really want to like step into.
like what are some of those, if you can tell us?
I
Some of the
definitely I
dream
definitely
stuff.
have like fallen in love with the church and like Redstone Church for like to be specific.
Okay, some ministry-esque type stuff.
Yeah, or just any kind of ministry. I really want to like step into a role of like mentoring and
Nice.
being able to like connect with kind of like young girls, like middle school and like high school girls.
Yeah.
Just because those were times where I felt like I could have really used like someone that would pour into me and be intentional with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I would love. So I guess there's like things on my heart, but there's not things that are like necessarily lined up. Also, I miss coaching a ton. I really want to get back into that.
Coaching what?
Volleyball.
Okay.
I miss it so much.
I can see you doing that. You're tall.
Yeah.
Hitting the ball.
Yeah, I played.
Oh, we played volleyball
Yeah.
together once too. I forgot. And you were real competitive about
That was
it.
fun.
Talking smack and throwing sand everywhere. I'm kidding.
Yeah, so up until I didn't play anymore, I started coaching after that, and that was really fun. I missed that a
Nice.
lot, and then COVID and all that. But
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know, like I have my background is in education, and so I don't want to like completely
That's what you went to like college for.
mhm,
Okay.
step away from that, but I don't know. Yeah, there's just and being like on mission and like I feel like even in this past year I've fallen more in love with Jesus and I want to like step more into like okay, like I want to tell people about them and
Yeah.
about him and I want to like just get in it, so yeah, man, I don't really know like what my future holds, but honestly like
You've got one thing I'll say is that you've definitely got things though.
yeah,
You've just got things lined up in these little bubbles, and you
Little
just
bubbles.
choose which one you're going to go up and go.
I'll choose
pop.
that one today. Yeah.
So that's good. But here's the thing too. Even somebody listening to this, even if you don't have any direction at all whatsoever, like it's just a dark cavern, okay, no big deal.
Yeah.
At least now you can create something.
Yeah.
You can build off of something. So, because I know some people freak out. I was one of those for years. I just didn't know. Like when I like finally broke into my 20s, I'm not a teenager anymore. I'm out of high school, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like I don't know. And you're supposed to know. That's the rules. Like at this point, like I'm in college, and I'm like I got to do a certain thing to get this kind of job. And then after that, I got to make sure I've, find my significant other and get married and have kids and buy a house and all this stuff. And I got to do this by, but let's see what age. And I'm like, and then like, it took me a little while to realize like, that's that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, pardon my French, but it's just not, like your life goes the way that you want it to go, or the way that you're being led into it.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't have to follow some scheme, like what your friends are doing, what your neighbors are doing, what your classmates are doing, what your parents tell you should do. Like, that's not, and so many people live that way. I guess it's just a part of society, right?
Yeah.
Everybody just kind of herding the same way. But I think that's the beauty of human beings, is being an individual.
Yeah.
And your path, maybe you're not going to do that stuff until you're like 50. Or maybe you do it out of high school and you get, or maybe you go to college when you're 35. I don't know. Like, I think it's whatever you, I don't know, make it out to be, whatever you feel like you're being led to.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of factors that go into like how your life kind of lays out. And some are like controlled and like consequential, and some are not, and like you're like you don't have any control over it at all. I wanted to be like a pro athlete, and I got a shoulder injury, and
What kind of shoulder
literally
injury did you get?
I dislocated my shoulder, and I
Ooh, doing
tore my
volleyball?
labrum. Yeah. Well,
Oof.
actually, no. I was cliff jumping
Oh, wow.
and dislocated it the first time.
No wonder you don't
and
like hiking.
and then the second time, it was during regionals, which is the game you play like before state.
Yeah.
And yeah, I dislocated it, and then after state, like, and after the season of high school, you have club, and it's like when I was having my surgery, and club is when you have the opportunity to like travel nationally and get recruited and go and have colleges look at you, and it just wasn't in the cards for me. But that's okay, because then I like found my other passion of teaching, and like I just feel like life just kind of ebbs and flows, and like you have this plan for what your life is going to be like, and life also just intervenes,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You talking about teaching, I feel like that would be a really good, I don't know, profession for you.
yeah.
I don't know you that well, but you seem like a very patient person. You seem pretty calm, and that's what's really good for being able to coach or teach or, educate an impressionable mind, or somebody looking up to you for information.
Yeah.
It's really good to be patient with them, and, all that. And you seem like a pretty patient person, and I feel like that would be a good profession for you.
Yeah,
But then again,
thank
I don't
you.
know. Maybe not. Maybe you seem patient, but you're secretly not. I don't know.
The feistiness comes out.
Yeah, the feisty. I can't deal with this. Would you just listen to me? Your hair goes all fire.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I taught right when I got out of college. I taught for a nonprofit
Okay.
and really enjoyed that. I think I don't know if I had mentioned this before, but I had taught on a bus that was retrofitted as a classroom.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, which was really cool. So we would
That
drive
is
the
amazing.
bus down to like these two neighborhoods that we were licensed in, but they were like low income development neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And the kids would come from the neighborhood and come onto the bus. And it was really cool. It was a really good experience, and it was cool to like have a class of my own.
Yeah.
I co-taught.
Especially in that
It was
in that
so
way,
tiny. Yeah, it was
it's
so
neat.
intimate. The community was amazing. We really got to know the parents really well. I co-taught with this girl named Christy Feller, and she's absolutely incredible. She had taught for like years and years and years. And so my first year of teaching, I got to like co-teach with someone who had all this experience. And I learned so much from her, and we just kind of like worked with each other and balanced each other. And yeah, I really enjoyed teaching. I miss it. So
If I would have been in that situation with you doing the little, the little school bus classroom thing,
yeah.
you guys would have to like have put me in a box, or like just put a muzzle on me, because I would be so cheesy. Like, we'd pull up in a neighborhood and be like, "Hey, everybody, come on into the information station."
That's amazing. Yeah, I'd never used any of those lines. But
Yeah, don't ever. Don't. If you want to keep friends and
Okay.
have people respect you, don't.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. That's a cool thing that you did, though.
Yeah.
I'm visualizing it just seems really, really cool. But yeah, you seem like, and you also nanny and stuff, so that's another thing that shows that you're good with like kids or younger people and stuff like that, which would tie into teaching, I imagine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look at you doing all kinds of craziness. So, Taylor Jean.
Oh. Where'd you get that from, Mitchell?
I just made it up. I don't know.
Yeah,
You seem
okay.
like you could
It's
be a
not my
touchy.
middle
No,
name.
I didn't make it up. Maybe a little birdie told me. I don't know. Uh-oh.
No, it's cool.
Whoopsie.
I really like
Whoopsies.
Taylor Jean.
No,
Jean
it's
is-
very befitting.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very, very
I like
befitting.
that name.
Taylor
Yeah.
Jean.
Jean is the name of my grandma, so it was named after my grandma, the one with the red hair.
Yeah.
But she was like my favorite. She was like my.
I know another girl that got named after her grandmother very last minute. She was supposed to have a different name. And now she
Oh.
has like 5 names. Anyways, we won't go into that
Wow.
story.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. We'll talk about that later. It's funny. But Miss Taylor,
Yeah.
Jean, English. So this is the point of the show. Like after we've talked a little bit, I just like to try to take people a little deep if they chose to go deep. If they don't want to choose to go deep and you're hearing this, don't come on my show. Like that's a new thing. I used to be like, hey, if you don't want to get deep with me, that's fine. It's whatever you feel like. No, that's not. This is my show. People, you listening to this, you watching it. If you don't want to get deep, don't come on the Wrestling Diaries. Get him out of here, Matt. Get him out. He's not even playing. He's playing on his Facebook right now. Taylor, what are some of the things that you specifically right now, or maybe it could be things from before that are still lingering,
Yeah.
that you wrestle with? What are the monsters under your bed, demons in your closet? What are the things that you're struggling with? You're wrestling with?
Yeah.
My dear.
I love your show. I love the realness. That's why I was like excited to be on here. It's like,
Well, thank you.
yeah, I think
I
it's
appreciate
good.
that.
I think it's good to be real with people. Wow. Yeah. I guess the things that I struggle with now, I definitely struggle with anxiety, but that's been something that I've wrestled with for a really big part of my life. I wrestle with family dynamics, specifically like my parents, and you've probably picked up on that as we've chatted.
Yeah.
Wrestle with like my sexuality, understanding like who I am as a woman, stepping into like a role of like an adult, and also like just boundaries and being able to like really understand who I am and why I am the way I am. Specifically like in my sexuality and experiences that have impacted that, and my upbringing, and just a bunch of different things that have gone into that. Yeah, I guess those would be the main things now.
What do you think helps you get through the storm of the things that you're wrestling with? Like, what do you use? Do you have like a catalyst? When you're dealing
healthy
with
or unhealthy?
because
there's both.
Let's go both.
Okay.
What do you do that's we'll go unhealthy first,
Unhealthy
and then we'll
first.
end on the better note with the
Yeah.
healthy stuff that you do to combat these
Yeah.
things.
So a lot of like my anxiety manifests in ways where I want to have control.
Can I ask you real quick?
Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt, but like, what are things specifically that give you anxiety?
Like my triggers.
Yeah.
Oh man. The biggest one that I feel like I've been faced with is not feeling enough, or feeling like I've messed up and made a mistake. And
Like you're a perfectionist.
yeah, like very much so, but like not to the point of like, wow, like I want to be really good at something. It's like, wow, I don't want to mess up because I know how I treat myself if I like don't like rise to the occasion or
Yeah.
what have you. So in times where I've like messed up with my job, where I haven't been as patient with the kids, or I've like gotten in arguments with people, or I've done something to hurt someone, or I've said the wrong thing, like when I have a disconnect with like a relationship, I get really triggered, and the anxiety starts to manifest, and there's like a fear of just not feeling good enough. And I would also say that like with that, loneliness is another like thing that makes me feel really anxious. Sometimes it's really healthy to like have time alone and to like have time to decompress,
Sure.
but like the actual fear of just being alone and like not having anyone that like cares about you or loves you, and you like start to have those lies feed into you,
Yeah.
causes me to feel super anxious.
And so before I asked you the specifics of your anxiety
Yeah,
triggers, you were going into the unhealthy things that
I
you do
was. Yeah.
to combat with the things that you wrestle with personally.
hmm
So continue on with that,
Okay,
please.
continue. Yeah, so the things that I use to like cope with anxiety in a really unhealthy way, um I definitely like will eat food, and it won't be like food that it's like, wow, like this is like a healthy snack. It's like I'll go and like get like fast food and like things that I think that will make me feel better and like the present moment, like are things that definitely don't. Um, Shopping is like another like outlet. Like I'll like go and like
Retail
spend money.
therapy.
Yeah,
Retail
it's such
therapy,
a
bro.
real thing. I've been told by like my significant other that like Target is like a not okay place for me to be because
Oh my God,
it's
I
such
love
an
it.
unhealthy
I love it.
habit.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's funny.
yeah, there's also like yeah, so like you're in
Well,
this like
sometimes that stuff can be good in moderation,
yeah,
right? Like when when you're doing it just all the time to try to numb yourself up or derail your mind from these things that you should address, it could
yeah,
be bad. But every once in a while, it can be real therapy,
yeah.
like kind of venturing off and spoiling yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I guess it depends on like what the intentions are.
And I guess it also depends on how you feel about doing it.
Yeah.
Also, it's a huge thing.
Yeah. Um and then something that I think I'm like still processing but learning about myself is like, so I kind of touched base on this earlier, but um with like part of my sexuality is like I like veer towards like watching like pornography and like self-pleasure because there's like that space where I'm like, wow, like I'm like really not feeling good and I'm not liking how I'm feeling, and this is one way where I can like know that I'm going to feel good.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's been like a really big struggle too. And it's not an unhealthy outlet, but it's like how because I've struggled with it for so long that like my brain, it's almost like that wiring just like happens of like, okay, I'm immediately feeling this way. Um, and I want to have like just like release or like relief in some way. So
Yeah.
yeah. Healthy wise,
Yeah.
because I'm not
Healthy
always,
outlets.
yeah, healthy outlets. Um, I'm definitely a verbal processor, so, like, calling a friend or connecting with someone that, like, I know will be able to hear me and, like, what the emotions I'm going through is really helpful. Um, and I think another thing is also, like, I'm a really big advocate for, like, getting in a space where you can allow God to, like, meet you where you're at. And
Hmm.
so, there's been times where I've um not wanted to, but like in times where I've allowed God to like come into that space with me, and I've invited him into like saying like I'm really 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 in a dark place right now. So in times when I've read my Bible or like listened to worship music or like prayed and like talked to God, um that is like the most times where I felt like the significant change of like immediately after I'm like, wow, like that was the release that I needed, and that's the peace that I was like really longing for.
Hmm.
um but it's really hard to get there sometimes. Um, and then I would say like the other outlet is like, um, I don't know, being able to like write things down and get things out. Cause like even in writing, like your thoughts have to slow down, and anxiety, like you're so sped up and you're caught up and you just feel like you're spiraling. And I feel like in times when I've chosen to write and like gotten my words out on paper or even on my phone, like I'll pull up like a little note on my phone and just get things out that have been on my heart or in my mind. It's so much more freeing because they're not captive in me, but it's like
Yeah.
me being able to process as I'm writing it, if that makes sense.
It makes 100% sense. And the whole time you're saying this, I'm always thinking how I use that as a outlet. And then I preach nonstop to people about writing stuff down, right? Part of the reason why the name of the show is The Wrestling Diaries goes and falls into that concept, because like writing things down, having a diary or having a journal and just writing down your thoughts and feelings. And for people like, oh, this sounds so emo and like what, but it's not, because like you're anchoring like whatever's inside outside, you're releasing it. It's almost kind of like, you know, you're so upset and you're so built up with things, and you just start crying and crying, and it's sad and to see that and somebody's going through pain. But also if you think about the concept of seeing someone crying, it is also kind of a good thing, because they're releasing. They're releasing all that stuff inside, and it's coming out, you know, in this emotional form of, you know, having tears and all this stuff. And so writing for me, you're anchoring down like whatever it is, these deep, dark seeds, and you're putting them out in the world. You're anchoring them into existence.
Yeah.
And it's also, have you ever like written something and then went back and read it, and then you're like, oh man, I was feeling this way and I wrote about it, and like reading this back, I'm like, oh my God, I'm glad I did this, because like, man, that was inside of me, and like I expressed this in this way. Kind of like look at, you know, you're looking back on yourself, like, I don't know, in this way where you're like, oh, okay, I'm so glad that you were expressing your feelings, even though it was just on paper. There's just something really powerful about it. Yeah. You know, really it is. So I'm glad that you do that. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that you're doing. That's a beautiful thing. You should keep doing it though. I try to get everybody to do it. Yeah. Right. When people come on the show, the Wrestling Diaries, I like to use the analogy like I'm asking a guest about their life and what they do. They're promoting their being, and they're talking about the things they wrestle with. This is like them adding an entry into this diary. You know, they're writing, like, Dear Diary, today is blah, 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 blah. Last year I had to deal with this. XXXX. Yeah.
And I think the other beauty of like writing and getting things out is like you can more specifically get to like the root of what's actually going on. So I feel like there's like the surface level of like, wow, like this is just the emotion, but then like there's layers to it. And then I think by the end, like you can look back and be like, wow, like either I see a theme or like a constant where like this is actually what's actually bothering me, you know what I mean? And this is why I'm triggering. And I think that's good to like look back at it, because you learn about yourself in that way. Like I feel like we're constantly evaluating and learning about ourselves, and being able to have like a concrete place where like these are my words and my thoughts is a good way to like learn about yourself, you know?
Yeah. And then like having good conversation is a really great, excellent outlet for that. Like having a real conversation. It's not just complete, just silly fodder and BS, but like you're actually talking, you know, like you're cutting up or whatever, but you're also, you know, you get deep about things.
Yeah.
I'm not a surface level person by any means. I'd float on the surface sometimes, but I like to take myself very deep, and I like to take the people that are in my life very deep. And then that's how I kind of calculate who I let in close to me. It's like, if you can't go deep with me, then I got nothing for you. No offense. It's just like, you know, like a buffalo is not going to herd with an antelope. This is kind of how I look at it. If that's, you know, so I think like going deep is really good, because it teaches you about yourself.
Yeah.
There's so many people that just walk around and just like, they just got these cloaks of BS on, just wearing just this BS cloak, and they don't have anybody that loves them enough in their life to tell them like, hey, this is not like serving you, and you're just being silly and just bullshit around in life. What are you doing?
Yeah. Something that I've like grounded in, me and my like significant other have like a pattern in this, but like we'll ask each other like, do you feel seen? Do you feel heard? And do you feel loved? Rather than like, are we okay?
Yeah.
And so it's like
that. That's good.
It's like, okay, like if we have a disconnect, or if we're not being real with each other, like usually it's one of those three things. Like, I'm not seeing you, I'm not hearing you, or I'm not loving you in the way you need to be loved, or vice versa. Like I'm not feeling loved in that way. And I think that goes like with all relationships. It doesn't necessarily have to be your significant other, but like there's a realness to that versus like a surface level, like, are we okay, man? Like, are you good?
Yeah.
Because what you want is to like be seen and heard and loved, but if you can't like access that, then you can't go deeper, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And the communication to that is so key.
Yeah.
People don't really think it like one of the top 3 things in any relationship for health. Communication is in that top 3
Yeah.
list. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it's pivot, and it's like talk out your problems, iron them out, just keep talking. Like, yeah, well, what if we keep talking and nothing gets settled? Well, you talk so much that you just be exhausted then from talking. And then in that exhaustion, you're like, oh, okay, well, whatever's like upsetting or whatever issue it's, you're so worried about just being tired from just talking for so long that like it kind of like, I don't know, eases the pain, and then you fight it another day. But like regardless of that, you just keep talking. And I feel like more times than not, eventually as you're communicating, you kind of like you'll realize, especially if there's a misunderstanding or something, you'll come across it and you'll be like, oh, okay, I see. You bobbed when I weaved, and okay, all right. Well, I'm sorry, or this is a compromise, or just whatever it is.
Yeah.
Communication is key. Not
Yeah.
even just well in relationships, not even just in romantic relationships, in just relationships. Period. Professional, friend, family. You know,
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's where like it's registering like if I'm really actually hearing that person versus like because communication is like a two-way street. It's not like, oh, I'm just talking to talk, you know? It's like
yeah,
I want to be heard, but then I also want to hear what the other person is saying.
yeah. If you
Um
spar with someone in a boxing ring, you can't just stand there and just get punched in the
Yeah.
face and just standing there. They're punching you in the face.
This is a good time.
Probably not going to be a good outcome for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just that level of like really being heard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Both parties, back and forth. Just tell it. What are you feeling? What's going on with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds simple. We're saying it, and people could listen to it like, oh, that's simple. That's not. But it's not, because everybody's not applying this.
Yeah.
In fact, probably more than half the people around are not applying communication skills. People just get triggered, they get mad, they walk off, or they blow up. And that's what I've seen the majority of people do.
Yeah.
Because it's so much energy. People are lazy. They don't want to put in the work. I don't want to have to sit here. I don't want to admit that I was wrong. I don't want to talk. I don't want to just do, like, I'd rather just, just be emotional and then walk away.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or
Yeah.
blow up and try to make my point the right point or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird the way people process stuff, but it's, most times people are going to pick the easier option to do things.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to not deal with it and not talk about it because it's just extra work. You're doing the work. It takes emotion and psychology to sit there and talk and iron things out and whatever it is, even if it's not something that serious. Like if you're at work, like you're like your 9-to-5 job doing something, and you could communicate with your manager, they're upsetting you, but you don't want to because you don't want the conflict, you're non-confrontational. And I have a lot of friends that are like very non-confrontational. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So they're not going around getting into squabbles and fights with people like I have through my life because I'm pretty confrontational. But in not being confrontational, then you're just like walking away from things, and then you're just having to eat crow when you don't have to.
Yeah.
Closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's always assumptions that happen like on both parties, like, or like, oh, like I assumed you meant this when you said that, but I think there's a level of knowing yourself and then having faith and knowing the other person. Like, am I assuming this about them, or like, is this something that I know to be true about them? Like, are they really thinking that like they're upset with me, or there's a conflict actually happening, or like, can I have faith that when I talk to this person that they're going to be able to like hear me and be able to like have a conversation where it's mutual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think there's a level of faith that you have to put in a person when it comes to like having those confrontational conversations, because they can be hard. I'm not a confrontational person at all. I'm the least
No, you, Miss Redhead, fiery, feisty.
Oh gosh. Okay, when you put it that way. No, man, yeah, I want to be liked. And so I think like I have this presupposition that if we have a conflict, then you don't like me.
Mhm.
And so as long as I like just fly under the radar and we don't have a conflict, then that means that like we're good and you like me and that like you care about me and we're gonna be
I
good.
was just gonna say, if that thing that you're saying was true, then I guess that means I really don't like my mom. I'm kidding. But
Uh,
there's a lot of conflict there, but it's silly conflict.
yeah. And so
Silly.
I don't know, I've had a lot of relationships like that, but I have like a really good friend, one of my best friends from college, and um we had just like clicked immediately. But then, you know, there's life that happens and there's miscommunications and there's expectations and all this stuff, and we had conflict and it was like super uncomfortable, but when we had those conversations and we were able to be real with each other, it's like that's the friendship that's going to like actually last the longest.
Sure. Yeah.
Um and we took away like so many things of like, wow, like I learned more about you. I learned more about her, and we're able to like one put more trust and faith in the relationship, and like we're able to like understand and love each other better because we had that conflict in the first place. So like avoiding conflict is it's not it may feel like easier, but it's actually like long term way harder because like you
Sure.
miss out on the opportunities to like really be seen and really be heard and really be loved
Yeah.
in times when there's conflict, and giving the person an opportunity to love you. Like you don't give them the opportunity. Like if you just have conflict with someone, like you don't get to actually let them hear you, like you said.
Yeah.
Um so yeah,
Yeah.
conflict is good sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's just I think it all falls back on fear. People
Yeah.
just they're scared. It might sound weird, but it's really not. If you think about
No,
it,
yeah.
a lot of times you don't want it to. People don't want to have conflict or a confrontation. And when
Yeah.
people hear that word confrontation, I feel like there's a negative connotation attached to it. It's not, it doesn't have to mean like you're fighting and fussing. It's just you're confronting
Yeah.
something. You're standing in front of it.
Yeah.
And so if there's fear about it, which is I think what drives most people to not do that, then you're being brave,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like bravery isn't just necessarily, going over to another country fighting for freedom or going into a cave saving a princess from a dragon. Like fear can be in that form, just talking to somebody. Fear is a very widespread thing. In the
Yeah.
smallest forms and in the largest forms. So
Yeah.
I have in closing, I'm going to ask you two questions.
Okay.
I've been asking off the cusp when I ask people what they wrestle with, and I've been asking these other questions about like telephone time machines and speaking to yourself in the past and legacy and things like that. But I'm going to ask you a new question.
Okay, let's hear it.
You get to be the very first patron of this
Okay.
this new question I'm going to ask here on the Wrestling Diaries. But what is the saddest day or one of the saddest days that you've experienced in your life, and what did you take away from it? Like what did you summarize from it?
Yeah.
If I can ask.
Immediately I went like I had a flashback to when my grandma passed away. And that was a really significant day for a lot of reasons. So my grandma was someone who was super close to me growing up. And you know how like grandkids are like, and that grandparent and grandkid relationship, like they're just super close, but they have favorites, but they don't have favorites, you know?
Yeah.
But me and my grandma just were really close. And so to have lost her was like really devastating, and it wasn't super expectant. So that was just heartbreaking. That was the first like death I'd really experienced and like loss I'd really experienced of someone that was super close to me. But with that, something that I took away from it was up until that point, my parents were going through like a separation, and my mom had filed for a divorce, and that was kind of the trajectory that my family was headed in. And with that separation, there was a lot of animosity that I had towards my dad. And so there was a very long time period where I hadn't even spoken to my dad. I had like shut him out completely of my life. And me going to the house where my grandma had passed away was the first time that I had seen my dad in like a year, and I hadn't even like talked to him or been with him. And I remember running to him and just like collapsing and like being in his arms, and like um me and my mom and my dad were all together, and it didn't, like, none of the other stuff and all of the grudges that I had and all the frustration that I had had in the past, like, didn't matter. It was the like, the fact that we were just all together and there for each other in that moment is what mattered. Um, and I feel like that's how my relationship with God has been, where there's been times where I've messed up or done things wrong, or we've had a broken relationship, or I haven't been a quote unquote good Christian. Um, and there's been times where I've just like wanted to run to God and just like be in his arms. And um, I think that's what God wants, is like for us to just have that childlike faith and like run to him, and um, allow him to like be in the moments when we're sorrowful, when we're joyful. Um, and so that connection that I had with my dad really related to how um, I interact and how I like live out my faith now.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it.
You're welcome. It's a good question.
Thank you. Now, the second question
Okay.
is the other half to it, the other side. What is the, up to this point in your life, the happiest moment that, or one of the happiest moments that you've experienced? And what do you take away from that, looking back on it in a summary?
Wow. That's a hard one because I've had a lot of happy moments.
I ask the hard questions here, Mature Lane, the Wrestling Diaries. Hardball.
Wow, the happiest moment.
Or it could be one, I'll say one of the happiest, because, you know, sometimes people can't pin it into a specific. Gives it a little bit more open range for you to use something. But just something that was, you know, a very happy moment that you took a lot away from.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, just like with your sad moment with your grandmother.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a moment, it was this past Easter, and I was invited over to some friends for Easter dinner, and this was right when like my boyfriend and I had just started talking. And
your current boyfriend?
Current boyfriend.
Okay.
Wasn't my boyfriend at the time.
Right.
And there was this moment, and they were playing this music, and our friends, like, they were a married couple and they were connecting, and my boyfriend and I, not boyfriend at the time, my friend at the time, I don't know how to address that and make that just like
guy you were
distinguished.
Talking to.
Thank you, guy that I was talking to. Was at the opposite end of the couch.
Yeah.
And I had like went and put my head and like looked over at him, and he was on the opposite side, and he had like his arm out like this, and he like scratched my head.
Aww.
And my stomach dropped, and I had so many butterflies. And that was like literally one of the purest, like most joyful moments I've ever experienced. And it was just like, it was one of those moments where it was just like, it was just beautiful, like all encompassing, like the moment, like the environment, the people. And what I took away from that is like, in the times when we're feeling super anxious or overwhelmed, or like our priorities are skewed, I think there's missed opportunities where we miss out on the times where this could have been a really, really, really beautiful, joyful moment. And I think God like sets the scene, and sometimes we miss it, and that's okay. But those times when everything falls together, or like, I just thought of another like memory with like one of my girls, and like, they're really excited to see me, and like I step in the door and they run to me and like hug me. It's like, it's a really small moment, but it's a moment when you get to be super present for like the entirety of like the 5 seconds that it lasts.
Yeah, it's like you're free.
Yeah. So I felt that with my now current boyfriend that I'm super thankful I have. But I also feel that with children too. But yeah, I don't know if I ever had like a specific joyful day, and I'm sure that I've had plenty of great days that God has blessed me with, but it's like it's those moments, that you're like, okay, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the smallest moments, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is really trivial. There's like some meaning and deeper purpose to everything.
Yeah.
Hey, amen. That's a wrap. That was
wrap.
beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
You
Thank you for having
did a
me.
really good job for somebody that was just sweating nerves.
I was so nervous. I was like, oh,
You did a really
what
good
are we going to
job.
talk about?
Yeah,
Thank
you did
you.
a really good job. Thank you for sharing some intimate details with me about your life and stuff. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And I'll see you around, Taylor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wrestling Diaries. We had Taylor English on here telling us about her life and the things she wrestles with, her saddest day, her happiest day. And what do you take away from that stuff? Do you have unhealthy things that you do to cope with the things you're wrestling with, and then also healthy things? If you don't have healthy things, you definitely should have healthy things in your life that help you. And how do you look at your life from things that you've experienced that were very painful, and what do you take away from it? And how do you look at things that were very joyous, and what do you take away from it? And what does it all mean? And how can you share it? And how can you communicate better with people? These are the talking points to today's episode that people can think about if they're listening to this right now. Think about it. And do you let fear grip you? And if you do, how can you get out of that? How can you be brave? How can you be a knight in shimmering, shining armor? I hope you enjoyed this episode today. Check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube for the video content. Leave us reviews, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bells and all that jazz. Send me a comment. Send me an email. Love to hear from you. What do you wrestle with, and how can you beat it? One love.